Good evening, everyone. Lovely to see you all again. We're ready for another episode of the Scottish Football Social Club here in Premier Sports. As always, up and running on X and YouTube. Get your questions in. We've got a busy hour or so ahead with Alan Hutton and Michael Stewart. It was a weekend of late drama at a couple of matches. We saw a new leader come to the fore in the Scottish Premiership. So much to get through, all the goals, all the action on the way. Just a quick mention of our sponsors. The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you in association with SBK and Premier Sports. SBK, a betting app that cuts out the nonsense, just straight up sports betting for folk who actually care about the game, proper odds, no gimmicks. Alan, Michael, lovely to see you. Alan, this episode is for your brother-in-law, Robbie. Wherever he is in the world tonight, I hope he's watching, because apparently Robbie's been saying to Al every week, he's a massive Kilmarnock fan, by the way, get the new manager on, because he's doing a hell of a job so far. So Al,
he'll love this. Oh, he'll absolutely love this. He's away working in America, so I'm sure he'll still be listening and he'll be buzzing off it.
That's the beauty of YouTube, Al. You can watch it anywhere around the world. So maybe we'll even get a question in for Robbie. But anyway, the big news is that Stuart Kettlewell.
Wasn't he chucking beer in the Ryder Cup, was he?
No.
I hope not. There's only respect in that Hutton and extended family household, I'll tell you. Anyway, Robbie's going to be delighted because Stuart Kettlewell, the Kilmarnock manager, has very kindly agreed to join us tonight. So let's bring him in. He's waiting in the background. There he is. Stuart, great to see you. Thanks for coming on to chat on the show tonight.
How you doing, guys? You okay? I'm gutted that Robbie's not here. I was kind of in the expectation that he was going to be on the show tonight.
He'll be absolutely buzzing that you just know his name. That's enough.
Don't rule anything out, Stuart. Anything can happen in this show. But anyway, listen, really good to have you on, especially I think the timing of this too, because that was a brilliant weekend win. And I think, would it be fair to say that cemented what's a really positive start to the season anyway, but that just takes it up a notch?
I think so, Darrell. Yeah, I think I've had one or two questions that, that things finally clicked for us at the weekend, and I totally disagree with that. I feel that there's been a lot of good moments, a lot of good games for us. We probably feel and think that we should have a few more points on the board than what we do. We feel we've been on the end one or two decisions that make life a little bit difficult for you, as kind of we all do at times. But I just really think that the overall performance away from home, I've spoke about trying to look a different way when we play away from home. I think that that's necessary. Different surface, different environment, playing against some really challenging teams at this level. But I think that the players delivered everything that we'd kind of mapped out and everything we'd set out on in the week leading up to the game. And I think there was a lot of good individual performances in there as well. So lots to like about us. But as I say, it's a kind of building block. It's something that we need to replicate time and again to be competitive in this league.
Yeah, that's a brilliant finish, isn't it, Stuart? By Bruce.
Yeah, I think we're delighted. Obviously, Bruce came into the team. He's been waiting patiently for his opportunity, and everybody knows how natural a goal scorer he is. That's his instinct, is to pull the trigger early the way that he does. But I think what's especially pleasing for me is the pass from Liam Polworth, the position that David Watson takes up and connecting these strikers. And again, it's trying to pass and trying to play our way into those areas as much as we can. We feel like we've got quality to try and execute those moments. I'm seeing our crazy Polish goalkeeper trying to get involved with something there.
At least they saved it.
At least they saved it. We're asking the question at the end of the game, and anybody that's met Max will realise he's a brilliant character, he's a brilliant personality. He's saying that he wanted to get involved in the game. We would rather he stayed in his goal, and we were able to sweep that one up. But no, brilliant from him to save the penalty, because the guys will have seen it as well. The penalty shootout against St Mirren, it's a disappointment. The penalty that we concede against Celtic's a disappointment. So even that becomes a big moment for us. At a stage in a game where you've got about 10 minutes to play, including injury time, where a team that's tails could be up if they score a goal.
Maybe we'll get to VAR, but go on, Alan.
I was just going to say, you're right in what you're saying, because obviously I've seen a number of your performances this season, but really unlucky in the Celtic game, a really good game against St Mirren, and then it comes to this, and I know you don't like the term that all clicks, but even some of the moves, the pass and one touch, runs forward, it was all there to see on the day.
Yeah, I think, again, I always say that we're salesmen. As managers and coaches, we're salesmen. We have to try and illustrate, Alan, what we want. We have to show players, why we practice, why we spend time. We'll all say as coaches, we set out a game plan. I think the first goal epitomised something that we really did try and work on through the week. And when you see that coming to fruition, it's credit to the players. But they need to see an end product, don't they? They need to see that win. They need to see that goal that they get at the other side of it to believe in it and keep doing it. But I know we're talking about that overall, not just this game from the weekend. I thought the players' applications since they come in, how receptive they are to how we want to work, how we want to go about our business is first class. They're a humble group. They're an honest group. But we think that there's loads to go. And some of the guys, you look at some of the younger players that are in, some guys have had kind of longer journeys in their career. I use Marcus Dackers. He's young in age, but he's been at a number of clubs. But we feel there's real room for growth in all these players. And I think that challenge of trying to grow together and trying to improve together. Davy Watson will need good strikers. Good strikers will need Davy Watson pulling into those areas of the pitch, etc., etc. Then you kind of go on that journey and that pathway together.
You say you're like salesmen. Now, would you accept that, like car salesmen, there's some dodgy ones out there?
more than I care to imagine, Michael.
No, sure. I was going to just touch on the fact you're talking about some of the youngsters that are in the team, and obviously Davy Watson's made an impact beforehand. He's still very much central figure in the Kilmarnock side, but Ben Brannan's somebody that's more so this season come right through and really he's caught the eye of a lot of folk. Is there any others that are on the cusp or that could potentially be making an impact this season?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question, and it's something that we obviously want to try and force through as much as we possibly can. I think Ethan Brown has been a little bit of a surprise package. He played, he made 3 starts for us at centre back and done really well. In some games, maybe found himself a wee bit unfortunate to drop out. But he's training well. He's one that's looking to improve. But there are, at the risk of naming specific names, we do feel we've got another 2 or 3. I think what the challenge, Michael, is, and this is where I got on my soapbox, and me, in terms of academy football and young players, I think the system's really challenging in how we pitch it and where we pitch it. Obviously, we've now got cooperation agreements in, which I love. We've got 3 cooperation agreements. I think we've got about 16 players out on loan. And everybody's pathway and everybody's journey is different. I think it's important that we pitch it at the right level. So Davy Watson, for example, doesn't go out on loan. He goes into Kilmarnock's first team and plays. I used Lennon Miller of the past, goes in, never comes back out again. But there are some lads that need to go and gain that 20, 30, 40 games in a loan environment, whether that be junior football to try and jump up towards League Two to League One. So we have got a real connection with myself, the academy staff, the first team staff, and we've actually got a kind of head of pathways, which is something we've tried to create at the football club so that we keep a real handle on what these young players are doing, the minutes they're playing, how they're performing. Because as you know, I take it really serious that we don't just have academy players there just for the hell of it. It's with a purpose and a view of trying to see if we can promote them into our first team.
It sounds, Stuart, like the club is in a really good place. I mean, if these youngsters continue to develop, and as you say, you've got a track record with guys like Lennon Miller and improving young players, but also the training grounds coming on, is that right? I read that recently as well. So the club it feels like, we know they've had some top managers in the last, decade or so, but it feels like the structure is really solid behind you. And I assume that was a big part of why you were desperate to join the club.
Yeah, I think probably timing, Darrell. I think that my kind of vision and what's important to me really lined up at a specific time with the football club. It wasn't a difficult conversation. I think we were all striving and looking for a similar opportunity. You're right in what you say about the training ground. That's something that really excites me, and it should excite Kilmarnock fans as well, because it's not just a hub for as a place and a kind of shiny new toy. It's a place where you get to work and hopefully you produce your own players, and first team players can improve and get better in that environment. Obviously there'll be a change of surface here at the park. We'll have a grass pitch this time next year. And listen, we have had to cut our cloth accordingly. And this isn't the bit where I start ramping on about budgets and all the rest of it, because nobody will listen anyway. It doesn't matter. But genuinely, we have had to cut our cloth accordingly. We've had to taper things back because that longer term vision of the training ground, the new pitch, the new surface at the football club, obviously that has to be paid for as well. But in doing so, I really hope it doesn't reduce the quality. I don't think it has done in the squad. Kilmarnock lost some serious players, some big players. You can go through guys that really contributed to success here at the football club. But you have to find that next crop. And what I have to mention as well is I have to rely on the guys that were here. I was delighted with the players inherited. You sometimes forget about that these guys go unnoticed. But your Robbie Dees, Lewis Males, Brad Lyons, these guys are great experience, great quality, and they've been that real kind of nucleus that we needed to get ourselves off and running.
Yeah, and Brad Lyons, I've got your captain coming back at the weekend. He's recently back from injury, isn't he? Just when I look through the team, actually, and I know you're missing some players. Jamie Brandon's been injured, Brannan's been out, the others too. But even the bench at the weekend, it looked like you had options. You've got forward players you can bring on as well. Maybe 3 you can rotate between them, and Bruce Anderson obviously scoring at the moment, which is a massive positive. But overall, the squad looks like it's in a good place.
Yeah, I think I've been really big on this, Darrell, the last few weeks, and I think sometimes we look at a bench and you look at players and the guys will tell you with the football that they've played. Sometimes you have people sitting on a bench sulking, feeling a bit sorry for themselves, but disappointed. But genuinely, the impact that we've had from everybody that's come off the bench, even for short stints, has been great. And I could make a case for virtually every one of them starting in the team. I always talk about that element of how do you deal with disappointment, and I think probably Bruce Anderson, probably Ronnie McKenzie, Greg Kiltie are great examples that at times they've had a wee bit of disappointment this year, but anytime they've been called upon, they've been an example to everybody of how to behave, how to act, and how to go about your trade, and that especially pleases me. And I think what that does is it kind of leads a path for us for the rest of the season, that you have to take that opportunity when it comes your way. There's no use sulking about. And I think when you look at our substitutions, again, I'm not patting myself in the back, but the substitutes that come on in the second half at the weekend really added something to the team at a stage where we probably had to play with a slightly different dynamic, and I think we did. But as I say, we're going to need that moving forward. It's going to be an important part, and I think it's a great place for a manager to be able to turn around and start to see 5 or 6 different scenarios in your head.
Stuart, I wanted to ask you just, and it'll probably annoy you, but when you look at having come into the club initially, on the back of obviously the way that things had finished at Motherwell, were you aware or were you conscious of the fact of, I need to have a pretty good start here to make sure I can get everybody on board? Because there was question marks, obviously, about how things had finished at Motherwell. I've got to say, though, the slight sort of backhanded compliment and positive is that when I was at the game against Celtic, I had 3 or 4 Kilmarnock fans just around us, and they were all talking about, they were unsure at first, but they said, look, the manager's won us over, really happy with how everything's going. So were you aware of that? Were you conscious of it?
I think probably not, Michael, in the sense that I don't delve too deep into that side yet. I think we have to, focus on what the job is. But yeah. I think I'll give you a generic point on that I just believe when you come into a football club that your job is to make sure that you give people something to thrive off of, whether that be, I think the first place we start is can we win games of football? Can we entertain the supporters? Can we play a brand of football that kind of gets people wanting to come to the stadium? But the other part of this as well, I've kind of got what I would call my pitch maps and my vision. I think how the game should be played here at Kilmarnock, and I've got that just in front of me out of shot for you guys. We need to win games to be able to get to that, so you've got those building blocks, as I say, that you put in place. Nobody will give me time in football if we don't win games of football and we don't perform, and I think that's always my basic fundamental, my non-negotiable is that we need to do something before we start to gain that support, whether anybody wants you in as a manager or they're happy with you or not. You can change people's mind, you can win people over by performing and being consistent in how you go about your business. And as I say, I think the vast majority of games, I know you've seen a few of them over the course of the season, there have been some really entertaining games. I'm thinking back to the cup game last week against St Mirren. It's a proper cup tie, it's one where both sets of supporters see that their teams have had a real good go. Michael, I'll go back to it again at Motherwell. Would everybody have wanted me as the manager at Motherwell coming in, having been out the game for a while? We went on a brilliant run, and then everything starts to kind of gather momentum. I think that's your job wherever I go or wherever any manager goes. I think that's something that has to be a basic fundamental in your first month or so in the job. That's what you have to try and do.
That's the thing for me as well, Stuart, though. See, obviously I'm down in Ayrshire, so I come across a lot of Kilmarnock fans, and they are all happy with the brand of football. That's why I was talking about the first goal you scored against Dundee United. You can actually see that they're well coached and drilled in what you want and what you're asking them ultimately to do. And the fans are all buying into that. That's what I like about it, and that's what I'll hear from the fans down here.
I think we have to be identifiable, Alan, don't we, in terms of what do people want to see at a Kilmarnock team? I'm not a football romantic. I think you guys will know that. I'm not one of these guys that's style over substance. Absolutely, substance has to be there. But as I say, I think that we can become more eye-catching than what we already have been. And that's just a genuine belief that I think we've got some serious talent and some serious quality in the building, and trying to give these guys a bit of freedom, but having that freedom from a real kind of set structure. And I think that probably is a little bit of hopefully what you've seen on Saturday, that we looked pretty sound defensively, but I thought we looked really creative going forward. And again, that comes back to the job. You need to have a balance to it. It's not one side over the other.
I don't want to keep you forever tonight, Stuart, but just 2 or 3 more questions, if you don't mind. We had Derek McInnes with us last week. One of the things he said, I think you just hinted at it as well when you talked about the game against St Mirren, how competitive it was, how good a game it was to watch. But he talked about the level in the league this season, how many teams maybe have improved or are so difficult to beat at the moment. I mean, of course, the dream is to get back into that top 6, to do well as a club for Kilmarnock, of course. But it's a really tough league, isn't it, to get above that, if you like, that level?
Unbelievable, Darrell. I think, I'm not sure how many seasons now that's I've managed in the Premier League, whatever it might be, 5 or 6 or whatever it is. I think that this is the most difficult it's been. I really do. I think when you see some of the recruitment, I think when you see different managers coming into the league, different thought processes, different ways of playing, I love that challenge. I embrace that challenge because, I think we'll find at the end of this weekend that we'll have played against Livingston twice, Dundee United twice, and St Mirren twice, which is quite unusual at this stage of the season. But you're seeing different traits. Dundee United, for example, are a completely different side from what they were last year. A lot of different personnel. I touched on the managers that come in, but listen, I'm also a huge advocate of the game in this country, and I think sometimes we're far too quick to diminish what we are and how good we are, and and the standard that's there. I really do feel that it's went up a good sort of 10, 15, 20% this season, and I can see it being a difficult challenge, and I think a lot of teams will have some tough runs in there as well. I think it's important that we don't become knee-jerk. If you lose a couple of games to good opponents, we are all striving to try and win games of football. Of course we are, but I think we're going to be met with a lot of challenges this season, and hopefully we can certainly provide that to other sides as well.
Your next game is St Mirren. You get another crack at them right away after that international break, live in Premier Sports. Derek McInnes back in town as well, which will be a tough game. But St Mirren, is it good timing just to get, because it was such a good match, by the way, and the margins are so small. Penalty kicks, the penalties you mentioned, Celtic the week prior. I mean, margins are small, but another go at a team that's just beaten you, if you like, which I guess is the motivation that any of the players, if they need anything extra, there it is.
Yeah, I just think that St Mirren are a model of consistency. I think that's what they are. Always so difficult to play against, always so well structured. I think they're scoring some good goals. I think they look a real handful and a real threat going forward. But as you rightly mentioned, and I'd spoken to so many folk before that cup tie, and it was I keep terming it was the toss of the coin. Somebody was going to be disappointed, but the margins were always going to be so fine. And I don't think we see it being a different game this Saturday when they come to Rugby Park again this weekend. I think they changed a little bit, St Mirren, at the weekend. They obviously lost out with Bacchus and O'Hara coming out of their team. You wonder if that makes them any different. And I think probably the answer isn't that it doesn't, because the quality of player that they're able to bring in, the strength that they've got. So, listen, a real tough game for us coming this Saturday, but I genuinely hope that the players take some real confidence from what they showed the weekend past.
Did you see the handball in real time? Obviously the free kick that clatters off the boy's hand.
The cup game when there was no VAR in operation, by the way, for anyone watching that game.
It was a Stonewaller, that one.
Yeah. Oh no, I know it's a Stonewaller, but I'm keen to find out. Did you see it in real time? Was it obvious to you?
Yeah, we claimed for it at the time. Yeah, I think we generally claim for anything that goes in and about the box. But there was a real claim at the time. Just felt that Bacchus had stretched his arm out, and then our camera angle at the time, Michael, probably wasn't the greatest. So the replay that we get at the side of the pitch, at the dugout, we probably feel that he did motion, but I think we've probably all now seen the the clear as day. I've had a discussion on this one. I think everybody knows and acknowledges that it was a penalty kick. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I was probably trying to pick the brains of the officials as to what we're looking at. See, when we don't have VAR, so if you look at the referee, is the referee looking inside the box? What's the far side official linesman doing, etc.? And it's not a criticism of me. I was trying to educate myself on it because we are now used to VAR and we are now used to getting that next look at it. I think what was maybe telling is that both St Mirren and I wanted to play the game without VAR. We were given the option of whether we wanted to play with VAR or not. I'm sure most people will agree that cup tie with 4 goals just flows in extra time, and when there's a goal scored, we move on and we get back after the game. So I think both sides were pretty set on that. So sometimes you need to take the rough with the smooth. I accept that, but
so even though obviously it's a blatant penalty and it wasn't given, it was a call that you're quite happy to live with in terms of deciding to go without VAR.
I can live with that one genuinely, yeah. Was I frustrated after it? Of course I was. You feel that you're getting a penalty at a crucial time in a game, but it's definitely one that I can live with, Michael. I think if it's VAR and we watch that 4 or 5 times and we don't give it, that's where guys like you and I start to quite clearly get frustrated, and that's where we start to vent a little bit. But from my side, I move on from that one, even though I think we'll all agree it's probably as categoric a handball penalty as you're going to see.
Stuart, you don't need to get us started in VAR, by the way. I've had a few rants in this programme.
Michael and Darrell, wow.
I mean, I'm at the point...
That was a few cages here, guys.
Just wind them up, let them go.
I know you've got to be careful what you've said, but we've been doing this for just over a season now since I've been back doing some broadcasting. And I'm absolutely stunned by some of the decision-making. Just go back to the Celtic game. I thought you kept your head so well in that interview after the game because you were factual. You talked about what was said to you, the communication pre-season, which also Michael and Alan had heard exactly.
Told the exact same thing as you.
Exactly the same thing. I just don't understand at times the inconsistency, Stuart. It must be so infuriating. I'm at the point now, and I don't know how much you want to say or what you can say, but I was at the point, I've said to the guys for a while, where I'd rather not have VAR at all if we don't have enough officials who can use the system properly. And that's my concern right now, because far too many decisions have been wrong, and that was just so glaring, and it's cost you a point and what was a brilliant performance. And this is the problem. Somebody's going to end up getting relegated. There was big calls at the end of last season. Somebody's going to end up missing out in the top 6, extra money that comes, or a European place. There's too much at stake.
I think it just comes back to, Darrell, how tough this league is. So we spoke about it a minute or two ago there, that this league is so difficult, for us to perform the way we did against Celtic, to have the rally in the last 10 minutes where we look as if we're the team that's maybe going to go and win the game. For something like that to lose you a point or 3, then it becomes really difficult to stomach. I had a private conversation with Michael at the end of the game. I'd seen him and I'd went and spoken to him, because I know that you guys will have the same information as us. I'm aware that you have that same conversation at the start of the season and that briefing as us. So that was a wee bit where I was probably slightly confused, better, for wanting a better phrase, that I'm the most black and white guy in the world. Somebody tells me something, then I stick to that, and I try and abide by what that is. And part of that as well is that I don't want to go after officials if I'm wrong, so it's trying to get an understanding of what that should look like. Again, but
have you heard anything since, Stuart? Because in our opinion in this show, by the way, the explanation that came out after as to why it was given was just nonsense based on that communication. Have you heard anything since from the league? What's been said to you?
I'm not going to. It's difficult for me how much I can disclose and what I can say. What I can say is that I have since had a really good lengthy conversation and an explanation as to kind of what was seen, what the decision was. I'd spoken about it after that. I believe that we're going to see some disappointed people in Scottish football if that's what's been deemed a penalty kick, that ricochet off a foot and onto an arm from such close proximity. It would be my understanding, and again, I need to be careful. I'm not trying to quote anybody here. I would be surprised if we see that again as a penalty throughout the course of the season. I think that would be fair to say. I think there has been some serious work done behind the scenes, not just in Scotland, but speaking to other associations, other officials, to pick their brain. Would you give that in France, or would you give that in Germany, or whatever? And I think the general consensus is that people don't want to see it given as a penalty. That doesn't help us on the day, of course it doesn't. But I think that me saying that lines up with what you guys felt, what I think everybody in Scottish football felt after that game. And I think it becomes so difficult for defenders. You know, I would argue that it was terrific defending from Dees and Lewis Mayo, and the consequence of a block with your foot is a ricochet from half a yard. So I think we'll all agree that it can't be a penalty, and we don't want it to be seen given a penalty.
No, we're all in agreement on that. And by the way, there is a comment coming in, Stephen Adamson, I've just seen, and he's reminding me that there was a big decision that cost St Johnstone at the end of last season. And that's unfortunately what's at stake. Stuart, we'll let you go. We've kept you longer than advertised. There's that comment at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much for taking time out your evening to come on the show. All the very best at the weekend. Hopefully we'll speak to you again later in the season too. But thanks very much, mate.
Appreciate your time, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
All the best.
Well, it's not necessarily VAR chat, but it's interesting that, yeah.
I know you said it earlier on, but he handled himself after the game very, very well. And even there, you know, I think he's not divulging a private conversation with officials there, but he's given us a clear enough indication of, you know, effectively, I think they've admitted that there was a mistake made, you know. But
I can't believe they've made the mistake in the first place, to be quite honest with you. I know what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
Do you know what I think's interesting there as well? And again, I think Stuart's, you know, he's very articulate, and I think he's handled himself well in his explanation there. That you mentioned it, Darrell. The explanation that came out after the game was gobbledygook and nonsense, and they're
tying themselves in knots.
Yes, they were trying to justify a decision which was clearly incorrect, and now, in the cold light of day, it looks like they've, you know, reflected and realised that, one, the mistake was wrong, the decision was wrong, and two, their statement was nonsense. Yeah. And hopefully we can just get these decisions correct in the future.
Yeah, and by the way, you know, I want stuff like goal line technology, which wasn't available at the weekend. Now, they got that goal right, that Kilmarnock goal was over the line, but I'd rather have the absolute basic stuff. Get the cameras in place for the simple stuff. Goal line technology, offsides, absolutely. It's the stuff.
So would you do that and get rid of VAR then? Is your stand still that way?
If I had a choice right now based on our officials and the decisions that was made, I would have it VAR light. I said it from the very beginning, if you remember, when it was first introduced halfway through a season, which was also ridiculous, by the way. But why not?
Do you know
why not have VAR light? Use it for the factual stuff.
I said this at the time, and and there was folk that were going, no, it's the technology's there, so get it as soon as we can. Let's get it. And you're just like, that is such an illogical statement. You're introducing technology midway through a campaign that can alter, games that at the start of the season has not been available, and also it was nonsense all the way
ridiculous.
Through.
But listen, the
re-refereeing of games, nobody wants to see that, and that unfortunately is what you see. There's peaks and troughs. You go through phases where it starts to calm down, and then there's another period where there's a poor decision that's made, and then internally, this is what I think is an issue, that, like, for example, the comment that came in there about the St Johnstone incident, it was obviously the incident at Dens Park, the horrendous
Dundee Ross County game, wasn't it?
The horrendous decision that was made there and the implications that had. They tried to double down on that as well. Yeah. Nick Walsh was the ref, and they were trying to justify that being given. Absolute nonsense. And I think the problem comes that when they try to double down and justify a decision that everybody with a modicum of sense realises is wrong, it creates a problem for the rest of the referees, who probably look at it and go, that's not the right decision. Because if the authorities are saying black is white and white is black, the next time it happens, an official who probably recognises that it's wrong is in a real awkward position of, I'm going to have to make a decision against my better judgment because the authorities are telling me that's what I need.
That's where you have to be strong. You have to be strong then. If you're the official and you see X happen, you have to be strong with it. They've got that opinion.
But I agree with you. But do you understand the problem with some
I understand. Yes. They're getting told one thing and they're having to stick to it.
Yeah, if the central body are going to turn around and say, well, you got that wrong, and all of a sudden your head's fried as an official.
Anyway,
I get
listen, we have to move forward because Stuart Kettlewell was excellent. He speaks so well, actually. And as you've all rightly said, he's won all those Kilmarnock fans over right now. Things are going well. Great to have him on the show. We'll come back to Dundee United another week because they had a brilliant midweek result against Aberdeen. Yeah. Maybe a little bit fatigued. Maybe they ran out of steam. Maybe it was just Kilmarnock were excellent. We'll talk about them again another week. We have to move forward. In half an hour, we've got all the rest of the highlights, the games to get through. Let's move on to the Jambos. A comprehensive win at the weekend. Michael, you've been so excited in this show. The excitement levels just go up again for you. But look, top of the table, in all seriousness, there's a lot to like about the way Hearts are playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now you can start. I mean, Kizaridis' finish is unbelievable football. And this is where you start to see these sorts of games against, sides that you'd be expecting to beat, but can be very difficult. Great finish for Shankland as well.
Yeah.
His confidence is back. And they've now got options. They've got balance in their team. Shankland, see that? I know it's obviously saved and the goal comes from the corner kick here, but even just Lon Shankland taking that on, he's adjusting.
By the way, how good's he been as well? Halkett staying fit.
Do you know? It's a very good point about Craig Halkett. He came back. Well, he didn't come back. He stayed and didn't go on holiday this summer because he obviously recognised I need to get myself fit. And I think he lost close to, I think it was over 5 kilos to get himself in shape. Didn't go on holiday, went into work and got himself in real good shape because Craig Halkett, fully fit, is an absolute mainstay of the team. Unfortunately, for the last 3 years, it's been, one injury after another. Looks like he's got a run of games. Looks like he's in, real good shape and looking like the player we know he can be. And then an injury comes and it takes him a while to get himself fit. It's absolutely brilliant to see him fully fit. And hats off to him. Hats off to him. No summer holiday. I need to get myself fit. And no wonder he's, one of those main guys in the heart of the defence for Derek McInnes because he's a proper player.
I think the other thing is, Al, that you could also sense the sort of slightly muted because he doesn't want to get ahead of himself, but the excitement also from Derek McInnes last week. We were talking to him about Chesnikov still to come in. Some of the other new signings, remember, have hardly made an impact yet. These are a lot of the players well who are contributing. Obviously, Kirazidis with the goal at the weekend, which was brilliant. But a lot of the other mainstays in the past are doing good things.
Who's it?
Kizaridis.
Oh, okay, right. Good.
Hey, listen, second go. It's always better second go, isn't it?
Kizaridis.
I was in a flow. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I'll see if some of those other new signings can make any kind of impact, the sort of impact Derek McInnes might expect, and progress as a Hearts player. And then these other players come back from injury as well. Then that squad, it's actually going to be very hard to pick the team.
Well, I think Derek McInnes is going to have a headache, but in a good way, because it is a big squad. There's a lot of quality within that. And you're right, a lot of the new signings will come in and they'll peak at different moments when they get settled in. But I just think from what I've seen there at the weekend was a team that's very strong, playing with confidence. They're physical, they can get after teams. And I think they're beginning to believe that they can do something special. I know they spoke about a 10-year plan and all this, but it's come to fruition a lot quicker. And you even look at the number of goals they've scored. Like I was looking at it earlier, 15 goals in 6 games. Celtic have only scored 8.
Yeah.
And they're the kind of benchmark for everybody at this moment in time, what they've showed us in previous seasons. So listen, I cannot wait for the game at the weekend. I'm not going to lie. That derby,
what's a game live, by the way, Premier Sports.
Not been at one. Premier Sports has got it. I'm buzzing for it.
Honestly, I loved the Edinburgh derbies down the years. Calling it now, Al. What do you think?
I have to say Hearts. I just think at home, how strong they've been. Hibs have had their problems this season defensively. Look, they got an amazing draw at Celtic Park at the weekend, which we'll talk about. But
we will.
I have to sit on Hearts at this moment in time.
It's a mouth-watering game. Yeah. It really is. As Hearts is talking about, because Hearts, they've got a real good balance to them. It's something they've harped on about for years with Hearts. Totally imbalanced team. Now they've got a really big squad, lots of options. Right back it's the one, but it's a position that they're able to sort of carry at the moment. McEntee's doing a pretty good job. The rest of the team's strong. Agu's still come back in and have an impact. Chesnikov. They've still got, Kajota, Kabore. They've got other guys to try and play out in these wide areas as well, while they've got guys at the top that are scoring, strength at the centre half, plenty of options at left. But, it's a good balanced team, strong, lots of ways, horses for courses type, thing. And a manager that understands how to win games of football. So to take it forward to Saturday, there's many, many ways of skinning a cat here, and Hearts are capable of a lot of it. Likewise for Hibs.
Yeah.
They've got ability and they've got the potential to hurt anybody, really. So you cannot write Hibs off. No. And that draw at the weekend at Celtic Park, much needed. The clean sheet, going away to Celtic, that was, I know it's not a win, but it's as good as a win, I think, considering what's been going on at Hibs. So
who's winning the game in your eyes then?
Let's
get you off the fence.
No, I'm not on the fence. I think Hearts will win narrowly. I think there'll be goals. I think it could be like a 2-1 or a 3-2. I say 3-2. I don't know. I probably not, because I don't see Hearts conceding too many goals. But I can see like a 2-1, for example. I think Hearts will win.
Let's move on to Celtic Hibs then. We'll keep focusing on the derby, on Hibs when we see these highlights as well. Then, of course, Celtic had chances, and we'll see some of them going through in a second here, Michael. But on Hibs, really good structure to the team. They've conceded poor goals at times this season. You saw it against Falkirk midweek.
Yeah.
A couple of changes, of course, maybe a little bit in the way they set up and the way I approached the game, I should say. But Grant Hanley, a kind of game that just suited him down to the ground. Similar to the performance he had for Scotland recently as well. Grant's been on the show this season, but he just looked like a stalwart, a leader in defence without Bashiri, by the way. And that's what I think made it more impressive for Hibs.
Yes. For me, I think Hanley's got to play. No, I've thought that for a couple of weeks, but I mean, you can understand from David Gray's perspective, there's guys in that team that really have worked and done a great job for him. But I think Hanley, the experience and the defensive nous that he's got to play. And I'll be honest, Rocky Bashiri's been a little bit, been a wee bit unsure the last 2-3 games. Not really bad, but just not as strong as he had been last season. And when you've got somebody like Hanley, and the two of them in particular, they're obviously best placed at the centre of that back three. Salinger as well in goals. I think it's clear that he is the goalkeeper. Hibs have got, the disappointing for Hibs is that they've dropped a lot of points, but they are clearly a team that, when they're going to, find their rhythm and hit their straps, they can propel themselves up the table pretty quickly. But it's just been a little bit of a disappointing run for them, dropping too many points when they really should have been, hammering that ascendancy home. But they're in a good place. They're a good squad, and I think things are positive for Hibs as well.
See with Hanley in there though, there was a real desire to go and defend the box. That's maybe what they've just. It's maybe what they've been missing a wee bit. So see when you see some of the goals that were conceded, like Falkirk or things like that, to have somebody in there who just throws his body on the line, gets in front of things, no messing about. That's what they need, because as you rightly put it, they've got so many attacking threats going forward. On their day, they're a match for any team. So if they can just shore up that defence, stop leaking as many goals before and after half time, they could go on a run.
And the midfield for Hibs, where you can start to see the team is evolving and all the little positions that, not that they were bad, because they weren't, let me be clear, but they've addressed a lot of the positions, and slowly but surely you can see David Gray just making those wee adjustments, where I felt for a while the midfield was just a little bit too open, a little bit too, not too, but a little bit lacking in presence. You've got Barlasser and Chaiwa in there, a bit more physical presence, athleticism as well, which means Mulligan can go to right wing back. I do think he's looked better in the central areas, but he can give you that, athleticism up and down the wing from right wing back as well. So, they're starting to sort of fill in the gaps where you thought they need to improve slightly. And when I look at the team that Hibs have got, they really just got to start getting some results to build confidence. But I think the team is, and the squad as a whole, is in a good place.
they've got some really good options, and there's a lot of talk, by the way, comments coming in about Bashiri, and maybe, as you've said, it hasn't been at the very best this season, and Grant Hanley, a couple of clean sheets.
But the levels dropped slightly, not bad, not glaring, but just not what we saw last year.
I wonder if there'll be a place for both of them in that defence come the weekend. We'll see. Obviously, don't know about Bashiri's availability. Anyway, what a game to have live this coming weekend, Saturday tea time. Just brilliant timing as well, given the league table and everything going on with Hearts. Always great games anyway. Really looking forward to watching that. Just on Celtic then, Michael, I'll come to you first then.
Yep.
On another day, they could score a couple of goals. Iheanacho scores, doesn't he? But, off the back of the midweek performance in Belgrade, which, by the way, I actually thought was all right. Getting a point away in Belgrade, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But I get there's some negativity.
The first half wasn't great.
No, I know, and I get the Maeda storylines and everything else, Michael. But all I'm saying is, it's still a point in Belgrade. I've watched a lot of English teams going there down the years, last few years, Liverpool as well, and not winning over there and losing over there. So all I'm saying is that is not bad. And I think, a lot was read to Brendan Rodgers' comments after the game about a sort of reality. Yeah. Look, reality is a point away from home in Europe is never a bad thing anyway.
I agree with your overall point, but there's nuance to it. And the nuance is that the first half was a little bit, similar and familiar in terms of games where, like Kairat, for example.
It was uninspiring.
Red Star are far better than Kairat, but exactly that. It was uninspiring. Second half was good. Second half was...
the actual coming on. That was a difference.
You're looking at it and going, that's pretty good. But to then follow up with, a blank scoreline at home, it's that little lingering doubt in the mind of anybody associated with Celtic or watching them that are they what we think they are? And they've got quality, and I do think they will find their rhythm pretty soon. But they're thin. They're thin on options because Maeda's not performing the way you expect. And if Iheanacho got injured, they would be absolutely snookered, by the way.
Yeah. The Maeda one, obviously, I think because of what Brendan Rodgers said after the game as well, Alan, it probably made it the issue that it has become. There's questions about the mindset. He's a really humble guy, and you'd imagine his work ethic, he'll knuckle down and he'll find a way to really contribute for Celtic again. But it's just not ideal with all of these storylines that seemingly continued to come out the club over the summer, and then this one with Maeda as well. And where do you now play him, and where is he going to be at his best in European games? By the way, he was outstanding last season at times through the middle, but obviously in Belgrade it wasn't the case, Alan, and it must be a worry.
Yeah, but that's probably why teams were looking at him to come and get him in the transfer window, because his performances last season. So he'll understand and know as a player that if you want to get that move that maybe he's got his eye on, that you have to be playing at a level to bring them back in. But I'm not worried about him and what he's going to do going forward, because I do believe he is that humble guy who'll work hard. Where does he fit in at this moment in time? He played on the right, Taneki's out on the left. And you would think when he's fully fit, will play through the middle. But there was still some good things. Sarache, left back, I thought was really good. Linked up well going forward. He looks tenacious. He's got a good delivery. Well, I think it's a matter of time before it all starts to click for them. And then we'll see the best of them. And
also on Iheanacho, as a defender, Al, he's a nightmare, isn't he? I mean, if he gets himself up to full fitness, if you like, to top speed, or where he used to be anyway, when I saw him down the years playing, when he was just a handful all the time, the way he plays in the shoulder, the way he can drop deep, look at the touch before the finish away in Belgrade. I mean, he's got a bit of everything. That flair that I think Celtic fans are going to love.
I think he's only a few weeks out of getting that match fitness that's needed. That's what he's probably missed from his time, just his short time at Celtic. But played against him enough times. I know exactly what he's like. He's got everything really to go and hurt defences. And I think when he gets to that level, he'll show it, because he can score goals. He can link play up. He's very clever. He knows what's going on round about him, and he can sniff out a chance. So when he gets to that level, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, you'll see the best of him, I'm sure.
Yeah. And he's got that personality. Nothing seems to faze him. The penalty, remember his first game and everything else, scoring late against Kilmarnock. He's seen it all before. And that's so important in title races, if indeed there is one, in big European games and more. I guess the other worry, I mean, Celtic fans are sending in comments. So Jota still to come back, of course, this season. And there's other options that will come available. I think the slight concern is, look, some of some of the big signings, if you like, Engels getting another opportunity at the weekend. He's sort of hot and cold in games, some of the ones I've watched. Balikwisha still to find his feet, Michael. So a lot needs to come right for some of these players to end up being a real success at Celtic.
Yeah, I think that's
and
fair.
It can, by the way, it can, of course.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair comment. Engels, I mean, when he first came in, looked like he did. He hit the ground running, and then it's really just sort of petered off and petered out. Sorry, I think there is a player there. I think the big question marks are in terms of the transfer fee, and that it's a big one, and I'm not sure the impact has been quite as apparent and clear as the light that you've just switched on. I've
just noticed there's no lights on in the room. It was getting a touch dark. I put the lamp on. I'm having full regrets now, by the way. All right, people can see me.
But when you compare and contrast, obviously, with such a small transfer fee, and you look at Benjamin Nygren, who he's a player. He's a really good player. But I mean, Celtic can carry that. They've got gazillions in the bank. It's not an issue for them. That it's more they would rather have the impact of the player coming and giving them that option, because they just look a little bit, ineffective with what they've got coming off the bench. And Balikwisha is another one. Obviously, he's not long in the door. Needs to really start showing something, And
you want him to take on the fullback as soon as he gets it. Go and take him on. There's a couple of games that I've watched him and seen him, and at times he actually refuses to do it and plays back. Like, you want to see them being aggressive. I mean, the Celtic fans are used to seeing the likes of Kuhn, Jota, now to these kind of guys that are really aggressive in what they do going forward, making things happen. But he's a new sign, and it might take a number of weeks to settle.
And I've seen highlights, by the way, and obviously Brendan Rodgers wanted him for a while, so there's a lot to like. It's just, again, does it come together? Let's move on again, because still some big talking points. On to St Mirren Dundee. Briefly, another win for the Saints, Michael, to follow up that cup semi-final ahead. And, they had a couple of big chances in the game. They took one of them, Killie and Phillips. You heard Stuart Kettlewell saying it as well ahead of their meeting this weekend. They have to make changes in midfield. They brought a couple of players in over the weekend. They're missing a couple of really important players, but they've got good availability in the ranks, if you like. Players that come in and make an impact. It was no Bacchus, no O'Hara at the weekend, but Donnelly comes in, Dawu as well. Players that make an impact for Stephen Robinson so often.
Yeah, and no Marcus Fraser as well. I heard Stephen Robinson before the game talking about obviously three guys that would invariably be in his starting lineup. So, I think Stuart Kettlewell summed it up pretty well with regards to St Mirren. They are a model of consistency, and they've got a squad put together now that they're a very well-oiled machine. So that even with some of those mainstays coming out, the team as a whole are able to carry the loss of those players. What more can be said about St Mirren and Stephen Robinson?
Well, it's a question of how far they can go again this season. That's the thing.
This is what I was just about to follow up and say. What more can be said? Well, having a real impact in the cup, and they've got an unbelievable opportunity, obviously, with the semi-final coming up against Motherwell, which is a real interesting one. You get the feeling that for either of those teams, they will be looking at that and thinking, we fancy it. They really do. And for Stephen Robinson, if he's able to get St Mirren to a cup final, you start to really think he's not far off being able to become an all-time legend for St Mirren. Because as much as, if they come up against, and we're obviously hypothesising here, if they get into a final and they're playing against either Rangers or Celtic, for a fact neither of those teams are going to be looking forward to that final, because they know St Mirren are a team that can genuinely land some serious blows on them and potentially come out with the trophy.
Yeah, they're so hard to beat. And look, we've obviously discussed the Saints a lot in the last few weeks. We don't have that much time, so we can't do too much more of that. But I think the one thing watching Dundee as well, and Stephen Presley got their first win the week prior in the league, Alan, is that they missed Simon Murray, of course, but Absolutely. They look as if they're much harder to beat now.
Yeah, I think they're starting to get the balance a little bit better. The first few weeks it was very defensive. Simon Murray looked a bit isolated at times, and then they kind of grew into it as it was going along. I think confidence was building under the new manager, and we're starting to see them become, I think, a better unit defensively and having a threat going forward. But there's no getting away from when Simon Murray's not playing, they're a different team.
Yeah. No doubt. Right, onwards. The last few minutes of the programme, I guess we should focus on the game that you were at the weekend. And then, of course, we've still got the Sunday game to get through. So let's get on, I think, to Motherwell Aberdeen. Right, the Steelmen again, we've discussed them a lot. It's another really good win. They had other chances in the game. But the Dons, Michael, Shakhtar ahead this week. The games keep on coming for Yemi Tilleen. And I know the performance was a little bit better, but the big moments are hurting Aberdeen badly at the moment.
Yeah, and look, I think it's fair comment. It was better without being, scintillating, because it's difficult when their confidence is so low for them to be playing scintillating football. And I think all you need to do is look back to Hibs last season when rock bottom, and that performance against Aberdeen at Easter Road, where they managed to get 3-3 in injury time. It feels like they need something like that, Aberdeen.
Shoot. Like, seriously, I understand the confidence thing, but come on, as a striker, you have to be taking a shot there. Even as a defender, if I was there, I would try. You probably wouldn't go in, but I'd try.
It's incredible. And then
it's just when you're down there, though, isn't it? Like these sort of things, confidence, things go against you. I mean, the opportunity that Aberdeen in the first minute was great play. They get in down wide, great ball in, Nisbet. You'd put your house on him, scoring straight at the keeper. Like if that goes in, it could be something as little as that. Yeah. It just changes the whole momentum. But I thought for both teams, yes, Aberdeen were better. Thought Motherwell play some real good football. But see when it came to the final third, up until obviously they scored two, but it was the final third that just kind of let both teams down a little bit. They just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. That's what's missing.
Just Michael, just one on this then, if you like, because you just made the kind of Hibs, you gave the David Gray example. Are you saying that they've got to stick with Yemi Tilleen for a bit longer? Because the questions are being asked now. Do you feel like he's got to be given a chance to try and bed some of these new signings in and kind of finish off the project, if you like? I mean, is that what you're going with here?
But Darrell, look, I've got a lot of time for Yemi Tilleen. I think he's a really good guy. You get a sense that the players are well behind them. This is not a situation where the manager's lost the dressing room. When you look at it, I don't feel that. But that doesn't last forever.
When you're not scoring goals.
Winning the cup final is not credit in the bank indefinitely. So you say, should they stick with him? It can only go on for so long. I really hope that he turns it around. We need Aberdeen to be up as one of the main teams in the league and doing well in Europe. We need it. We need it in Europe.
That comment, I think it's Dundee at the weekend after Shakhtar, by the way. Wow.
At home. They've got Shakhtar on Thursday, Dundee at the weekend, and the point I'm trying to make about with David Gray in that game at Easter Road, it feels like Aberdeen need a game like that. And it was a game of just pure chaos, but it was a game of pure passion, pure desire, and that feels like what Aberdeen need. And in amongst that, they need a couple of little things just to go their way. Unfortunately, if that doesn't happen pretty soon, I fear for the manager. I fear for him.
Yeah, it's a huge week ahead, a huge few days, and obviously Shakhtar are going to be tough opponents. That draw hasn't been particularly kind for them in the Conference League. Right, on to Livingston Rangers, Alan. We got there in the end. We've got a few minutes left. Rangers.
It's amazing. The first one of the season. We're just leaving it for the last couple of minutes of the show. Unbelievable.
I mean, listen, we did that just for you, Al. Just for you. Listen, they got there in the end, okay? But I mean, it only tells a quarter of the story, because it could have been game over at half time. Then they let Livingston back in the game. Full credit to Livy, by the way, for getting themselves back into the game. But how can you work Rangers out when you see this sort of stuff from them?
It's very difficult, and I'm trying my best, but I just think the first half was okay. I thought there was connections between the players. They were playing the ball quickly at times. There looked like there was a desire to go down and close the Livingston down, but they had opportunities. They could have been home and hosed for half time, but no, they go in at half time, right? They're 1-0 up. But they then kind of take their foot off the gas. I don't know if it's a little bit of tension creeps in or what exactly that is, but they start giving Livingston an opportunity to get back into the game, and it's just the way it's been. It's just been difficult for them. You're looking for a 90-minute performance or as close to that as possible, and we're just not seeing it at this moment in time. Yes, flashes. I mean, there, for an example, that starts from a throw-in, not being switched on, not closing down, not stopping the cross, and then still away a decent header. And part of me, I'm glad that Max Aarons scores, because he's had a difficult start to his Rangers career. So to get that feeling and that emotion and everything running through your system, hopefully can only help him, spur him on. But you can see what it means to the manager. I mean, he was obviously under a lot of pressure with his reaction. You can tell what it means. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Well, listen, it's the fans' reaction right after the winning goal, Alan. I mean, I was trying to think of this actually last night. I've done a lot of football down the years. I've been a lot of games. I've watched on, teams north and south of the border, European matches. There's been managers I've had to interview after games that have been right under the cosh. Even on the kind of worst of days and the worst of form, I don't think I can ever remember a time where the team scores the late winner and you think, well, this could be the start of something, or at least it's going to galvanise a few people. And within seconds, the manager's name is being called for. I mean, the owners are watching on, the new director of football and everything else watching on. How, I don't know their thought process here, but surely they have not seen anything like this either. The fans have been lost, and we've said it for weeks now.
I've never seen it before. I'm just talking about the last-minute goal and the emotion and everything you could see between the players, the fans. You expect that to bring the group together. But for then the chance to happen right after the whistle, Russell Martin went straight down the tunnel, and he spoke about it after, saying that he didn't want that moment to be about him. He wanted it to be about the team. But it's the way the fans are at this moment in time, it's very difficult to see how he comes back. And I don't want to say that because he's a young manager. I want to see him doing well. It just feels like he's going to have to go on an almighty run of games with wins to even try and turn it round, which, on viewing at this moment in time, that's going to be very difficult to do.
What do you expect Sturm Graz? They've got problems at central defence now as well. Cornelius came off injured. They had to obviously mix things up there a little bit. So they've got issues they have to solve as well. Sturm Graz, I don't know, any game at the moment for Rangers, you'd imagine would be tough. You were at the Genk match too. They were, I know they were down to 10. They were very poor at times. I mean, what are you expecting the coming week?
A very difficult game. I know that. I went into watching the game at the weekend there against Livingston thinking this is going to be difficult. Like every game right now just seems it's going to be difficult because you're not really sure what you're going to get from this Rangers team at the moment. And I know Russell Martin pointed at the red card, but I don't think they were great before that. Like they had something like 7 or 8 chances. Like they could have been a couple of goals up before that. So also, there was
the red card was in the 41st minute. It was made out as if it was like in the first 10 minutes.
But Rangers were wide open before and after.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know, Hutch mentioned it there. I don't know what, just to sort of elaborate on there. The first half at Livy, it's been made out as if it was a really good performance. It was better. But
I just thought it was okay.
Livy still looked really dangerous, especially in that first 10 minutes.
That early chance, yeah.
Rangers still looked really open. As much as in possession they started to look a bit better, they still looked really open.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the concern for European games, Al, because as you know, teams, if you like, at that next level, I don't think I'm being unfair by saying that, but the teams at the next level, they always find a way to punish you. And eventually, it was coming at Ibrox against Genk. You knew eventually Genk were going to take a chance. It was remarkable they hadn't taken one, or Owen hadn't taken one prior. But anyway, another huge week ahead for all the Scottish teams in Europe. Huge for Celtic as well. Home against Braga, remember. So they've got a chance to build on that point in Belgrade. But so many really big games to come live in Premier Sports over the coming weeks. You guys are at that Edinburgh Derby. I can't wait to watch that this coming weekend, by the way. That'll be brilliant. Then the international break, then, as I said earlier on, it's Kilmarnock Hearts following that. So a chance to see Hearts a couple of times. And even I'm looking further ahead in the diary, some great games over Christmas period and everything else. But prior to that, on the October the 26th, the Sunday, Aberdeen Hibs as well, which also could be an absolute beauty.
But Darrell, see when you look at it,
final one, because we're almost out of time. Go on.
Yeah, well, see when you look at it, like all the games have been at, how good have they been?
Oh,
when
brilliant.
Premier Sports have been there, they've all been brilliant games. This league has been excellent so far this season.
And I do think the standards that some of the teams so difficult to beat, standard definitely has gone up across the board, as all the managers who've been on the show this season have said. Right, great stuff. Michael, Alan, thank you so much. We're back again on the Social Club next Monday. We will see you then.